Joining us here from the NFL on Fox and so much more, Greg Olsen here on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line. How you been, Greg?
I'm doing great, man. How's it going?
I'm doing great. Hey, I love that.
Appreciate the warm welcome.
Of course. It always is. You know, you always have a warm welcome here. Loved your son, TJ, getting to meet Aaron Rodgers and the story you told. I'll give you the floor here to tell that story for those who may not have seen that part of the broadcast on Fox this week, sir. Go for it.
Yeah, it was a really cool moment for him. So at the start of the year, I let each one of my kids, they get to pick a game that they can come to with me. And they come by themselves. The other two have to stay home. So
Nice.
my daughter came to L.A. last week when I called the Rams game. And then my son was going to come with me to Green Bay in week 10 when we were scheduled to go there. This past week we were supposed to be in Pittsburgh. So last minute they changed the game. So he ended up coming a little bit earlier. So we were sitting in production meetings and we, with, Burkhart and Aaron Andrews and Tom Rinaldi and the rest of the crew. And we were just, TJ was talking and they're like, hey, why'd you pick Green Bay? And he's like, I wanted to see Lambeau Field and I would love to meet Aaron Rodgers. So fortunately, I know Aaron well. I don't know if I know him well enough personally, call and ask for favors, but Aaron Andrews and him are close. So she texted him and long story short, he came out of the tunnel for pregame, looked for us, found us right by the tunnel, came over. He was amazing. Took pictures with him, ended up having a catch with him during warmups. It was just an unbelievable moment. It was TJ's, TJ, for those who don't know, had a heart transplant last summer. So he's finally now being able to go back on the road and he can travel and start doing some of these things. So one of his wishes was to go to Lambeau and meet Aaron Rodgers. And we're fortunate that Aaron was kind enough to take some time in pregame to see him last week on Sunday. And he carried the smile on his face the rest of the day.
Well, again, it's just it's a little thing, right? It's little things that mean so much, and I love it when I see big time athletes just do the little things, and I'm so glad that Rodgers, and right before a game, it's the stuff that he should do, and he does, and I think it's awesome, man, and I thought it was great. I'm so happy for your son and you. I mean, what a moment that must have been for you as a dad to watch your son after his journey and the depths from which he has now come back. It's amazing. I'm happy for you, brother. Really.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, he's a special little guy. He's been through a lot. He just had his 10th birthday last week, so he's doing great. And like you said, he's been through a lot. He's had, last summer was, probably as low as you probably can go, right? I mean, needing to have your heart replaced at 8 years old. But he's bounced back. He's better than ever. He's a great kid, and now he's just able to go back and enjoy the things that he wasn't able to do for a long time, like travel and be on the road and whatnot. So it's been a blast. We had a fun weekend, just the two of us, for a couple days in Green Bay, and he got to check off a pretty cool bucket list item.
I love it. How many kids do you have again, Greg? How many kids do you have?
I got 3.
Okay,
so I got one. So my son, my
bar's
daughter,
been set very high.
TJ.
Bar has been set very high for the third one. So what do you got here?
Yeah,
what do we have?
My daughter came to L.A.
Yep.
TJ got to come to Lambeau. My oldest son's in the middle of football season right now.
Okay.
He plays tackle football, so he's got to wait until the season's over. So he's got another month or two until he'll probably come to a later game. Knowing him, he'll somehow finagle his way into a playoff game somewhere amazing. So he'll be just fine.
Okay.
I'm not worried about him.
I don't know. I mean, Brady tapped out on a Friday night to go to a craft wedding. I mean, maybe your son, does your son have any Brady rules that he could abide by right there? Greg?
No, he's not missing. Yeah, we're not missing games.
Okay.
We put way too much time into this season.
Okay,
I don't even miss the games. I alter my flights around so I can be at the games.
I love it. Good for you, man. Good for you. Greg Olsen here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's just jump right into what you saw this weekend. What is when Aaron Rodgers after the game, Greg, he said that when asked about what to do for the offense, he said simplify things. So he said that when they moved the ball, they were doing more simple things, less motion. And when I heard that, and he also talked about the guys that they have there, that they need to do things that the guys that they can have there can handle. And that if they have the wrong guys there, that's a different conversation. That was what he said after the game. I thought to myself, isn't this the time of year where the simple stuff should have gotten already assimilated and they can push the pedal to the metal on the rest of the playbook? What did you see that Rodgers might have been talking about, Greg Olsen?
Yeah, we've been we've seen now Green Bay up close now. I think we've called 3 of their games.
Mm-hmm.
We had them the opener in Minnesota. And I think going into that game, of course, the conversation early on was, replacing, Devontae Adams when, traded to the Raiders. And, they got 2 rookies that are coming in, and Randall Cobb and Lazard was still out. So I think there was that notion of, we don't know what to expect. There might be some growing pains early in the season. And that's what we saw week 1 against Minnesota. And then it's kind of the unfortunate part is there's been glimpses here and there. But for Green Bay, what we just saw last week in week 6 was eerily similar. They struggle having guys win and create separation. They're not, they didn't pass protect great. So Rodgers got banged around a little bit. He's trying to keep plays alive with his legs, but when your protection's struggling a little bit, and the Jets were getting after him, he was under fire from the jump, and you're not having a ton of separation down the field. There's not, every ball that's thrown is a contested catch. He takes a perfect throw and a great catch to just make anything happen down the field. It's not a recipe that's easily sustainable, and people say, oh, they got to run the ball more. Yeah, and that's fine, but you got the best quarterback arguably in NFL history, and one of the few. The offense is always going to run through Aaron Rodgers, and to have Aaron Rodgers and say, oh, but we're just going to hand the ball off 1,000 times, I think it's just a little short-sighted. They've got to figure out how they can develop some guys outside, and whether that's through simplifying some of the reads. Again, I'm not privy to a lot of the inside information. It's their routes being run wrong, or the depth's wrong, and they're not running it, how the play is designed, and that's why there's no separation, right? There's always a lot of context to why teams are struggling. It's never just a simple fix, but at the end of the day, they got Aaron Rodgers. The passing game's got to be a force for them. And on top of that, they are used to playing from a lead, right? They're used to playing ahead. Their defense is able to play a certain style last year because they're winning most games and able to, not really worry about the run and whatnot. And right now, defensively, Green Bay's struggling. That at the end of the game, Rodgers cut it to 1 score with that pass to Lazard in the end zone, and all that, we said it on the broadcast. We said Green Bay's defense needs to come out and get a stop and hold the Jets here and get the ball back. And the Jets went right down, and Breece Hall popped one for a touchdown, and then the game was never, was kind of out of reach since then. So just both sides of the ball right now, I think, are struggling to find their identity, and I think you can kind of hear those words when Rodgers speaks to the media.
Greg Olsen here on the Rich Eisen Show, and you just mentioned about what's wrong with Green Bay and both sides of the ball and how they gave up a touchdown after making it a 1-score game at home. I can't believe I'm saying this, but how much of this can you attribute to the Jets being really damn good, Greg Olsen? How much can you attribute to that?
I think a good part of it, right? I think it's a two-pronged conversation. I think the Packers are uncharacteristically disjointed, right? Since LaFleur's taken over, we're just used to this team winning 12, 13 games every single year, and we just expect Aaron Rodgers to be the MVP, right? It's just and all of a sudden it's not quite that, and they're 500, and the sky's falling. But then on the other end, you have another team now that entered the game 3-2 with the Jets. Now they're 4-2, and they're 2 games above 500, what feels like for the first time in God, who knows how long. But I'll tell you, they are young, they are talented, they are very confident. It's hard to believe that they have all these first and second year guys. To some of the graphics we showed during the game about their point differential and points scored in the fourth quarter and their ability to close out games and win close games. For a young team, that's very, very rare. And I think it's a product of Robert Saleh. I think he's a stud. I think he's a fantastic coach. I think the culture change that they've implemented there is pretty significant. And their acquisition of talent has been really good. Their last 2 drafts, they've added premier players at premier positions: quarterback, tackle, pass rusher, corner. This past year, of course, in the second round, they get a guy like Breece Hall. I mean, it's a really talented, fun group. And now they needed to check a box with a big time win, and I think winning in Lambeau Field qualifies as
yes,
that.
It does. Yes, it does. Yeah, man.
And I'll tell you that's kind of the progression of a rebuild.
It is. Well, I mean,
next box.
Yeah, the box, man, that I'm checking. All right, is that clearly you mentioned Breece Hall, and you want to talk about brash and confident. That's Sauce Gardner for sure. That kid, Quinnen Williams, up front is a game wrecker of the first variety. And when I say first variety, I'm talking about the tops in the game at that position. And there's a lot of top names out there that you can mention, and he's heading in that direction, man. And you saw it in person. He blocked a field goal. He was in Rodgers' lap all day. He is a tone setter. He's allowing the guys behind him to fill the gaps. He's allowing the guys in the back end to do their jobs. He's friggin' amazing, that guy.
He was. There was multiple times during the broadcast that the only way we could classify what was happening is Quinnen Williams is unblockable. Run, pass. You mentioned he blocked the field goal. I mean, he was arguably the biggest factor in the entire game on either side of the ball. And I think, and when we talked to Robert Saleh last week going into the game, we brought him up and he said, he's kind of flying under the radar right now, not due to lack of ability or his impact on the game. Unfortunately, he's been playing on a bad team that hasn't played a lot of marquee games. Well, and he goes, if we continue to win and he gets a national stage, look out. And sure, right on time, he played a national game and was arguably the best player on the field. So he's we all remember him coming out of school. We all remember the impact, and some of the guys you mentioned, a few of them. Some of those guys they have on defense. Jermaine Johnson, the first-round pick out of Florida State, he didn't even play. Another one of their first-round picks from this year. You mentioned Sauce Gardner, Carl Lawson, the other end on the other side is having a big-time year coming back off injury. So they're talented, and I'll tell you what, I think they're going to be a force here for a long time.
So in the few minutes I have left with you here, let's turn the page to where you're going next. Marquee game of Week 7, without a doubt. There's no question about it. I assume you're doing Chiefs and Niners, right? You're going to
Yep.
Santa Clara next.
Yep.
So you got two teams coming off of losses. One, with the Chiefs playing the de facto best team in the league, somebody who you might be calling the Super Bowl with them involved in it, and the Bills. Then you got the Niners losing to Atlanta, where Atlanta is a young upcomer, obviously, but still the Niners should win a game like that. What do you make of this contest and the Niners' inability to start being more consistent, like we saw at the end of last year, Greg?
Yeah, I think that's the key word. You said it. I think right now for the 49ers, the consistency factor, I think any given week they could look like one of the best teams in the league, especially defensively. And then on any given week, they have a setback like they did last week, losing by 2 scores to Atlanta. And I went back and watched that game this morning, just preparing for it. And it was really a combination of a lot of things. They had, 3 turnovers, 1 fumble that was returned for a touchdown to put them down 14-0 early. They ended up coming back to tie it. They just could never quite get over the hump. And, and again, there's no excuses. And injuries happen to everyone. They're, when you go down there, Week 1 starting lineup on both sides of the ball, their original starting 22 versus the starting 22 they played with this past week. For whatever reason, it seems like every year just injuries play a huge factor, especially defensively with this 49er group. And I don't know exactly why, if it's just bad luck or whatever, but they need to get some of these guys back. They need to get Bosa back on defense. They need to get Trent Williams back on offense at the left tackle. So there are some guys that hopefully are back for them this week that just obviously make them just a different group. But of course, last week, going to lose to Atlanta, especially coming off the good win the week before against the Panthers, I think was uncharacteristic. I think they were playing better than that result. But as you said, Atlanta's getting better. And then on the other side, I think that game, Bills-Chiefs, is a flip of the coin every single time. They're going to play for the next decade. And barring some crazy, something happened on either side, I think we're going to continue to see the games be what we saw last year in the playoffs, which is arguably one of the best games we've ever seen. And then, the way that game ended the other day is pretty much in that same category. So I'm looking forward to this one. I wish they both didn't lose the week before we had them.
Yeah.
But I don't think it takes away anything.
No.
I think San Francisco gets some guys back healthy, which will help. And I think it's two of the teams that are, in the running. I think especially with the San Francisco being in the NFC, I think it's anybody's conference right now.
Yeah, I mean, I know that you say that with the Eagles, the lone remaining undefeated team, they're on a bye week this week. The division for the Niners is still there. I mean, they got 3-3 teams. They're one of them. Decent chance is what Kyle Shanahan said about getting both Nick Bosa and Trent Williams back for this game. And then Kansas City's got to sit back and watch the Monday Nighter and from last night, the Week 6 finale, and say we got either one of these teams if we face them. And in that regard, the last football question for you I have is, I started the show by saying whatever Nathaniel Hackett sold to the management team there about what he's going to do with Russ and whatever he's doing with Russ, he should take it and throw it out, or just see what he did well in the first quarter and keep a little bit of that, but everything else gone. What are you seeing with Denver?
Yeah, it's just whatever they're doing is just not working, right? And I think we expected. Right. I think week one, that game against Seattle, I think there was some reason. I think there was people were a little more accepting of the struggles, the inconsistencies. I think people
fumbles.
expected Denver to win,
right?
But just that was a little misleading. I think people just saw that as like early season struggles, and new team, new quarterback. But it's been every single week. And I think that's the concerning part is their defense has played really well. I mean, the games they're losing, the defense is holding people into the teens, and they're losing. And, they're losing. And what also hurts is they're losing primetime games, right? We're seeing them play night games, premier games. In the NFL, schedule makers were putting the schedule together. They saw Russell Wilson and this, young, talented Broncos team and thought they were going to be a contender. And obviously, they've fallen way short of expectations. So, they got some figuring out to do. I think Hackett, you talk to Aaron Rodgers, he speaks the world of him. He thinks he's a fantastic coach and really, thinks highly of him. And obviously, we've all seen what Russell's been able to do, in his time in Seattle. But for whatever reason, what's going on there right now is falling severely short of, I'm sure, all of their expectations. Forget our expectations. I'm sure internally that's nowhere near what they expected when they brought Russell there and made that trade. So they got some figuring out to do, and they got to do it fast.
I'm told, Greg Olsen, that you have some news regarding Tight End University to discuss.
So
what do you got?
Going on to I appreciate you letting us share it. So we are pumped. We're actually this Sunday is going to be National Tight Ends Day, started by my fellow TEU partner George Kittle. So it's very fitting that on National Tight Ends Day, I would like to think the NFL schedule makers did this on purpose, but maybe it's a coincidence. So Kelce and Kittle, my two partners in TEU, playing against each other. I'll be calling the game. So what better week to announce TEU than this week on National Tight Ends Day? So we are back. Charmin is back as our big partner, our big presenting sponsor. We're going to be down in Nashville. We hold it down at Vanderbilt's campus. Last year we had like 85 NFL tight ends for 3 days down in Nashville for like a 3-day kind of tight end summit of classwork and on-field work and some fun. It's really grown into a pretty significant event on the summer calendar. So we're excited to bring it back. What better time than now as I get ready to go call a game between two of the best guys.
I love it.
Of our generation playing the position. So we're pretty pumped about it.
Olsen in the booth, Kittle and Kelce on the field. Let's go.
I mean, how good is that?
That's it. I bet they did that on purpose. Kelce and Kittle on National Tight Ends Day, and just assumed you'd be calling it. I think that was planned, and I love that Charmin's your sponsor. What a great sponsor.
How fitting is that?
Amazing. Well,
they take care of your tight ends,
They do. Hey, and so it's going to be in Nashville next year again, right? The whole drill?
Yep.
Same drill? Run it back?
Yep, always. This will be our third year.
Okay.
Yep, we'll run it back. It's in Nashville.
All right.
Vanderbilt they're a great host, and it's an absolute blast.
I love it. Thanks for sharing that information here. As you know, I'm a big fan of all three of you guys, and certainly the idea that tight ends matter. And I mean that for the position. Stop laughing over there, TJ. What's the matter with you? And so congratulations on that and everything going on with you.
I appreciate it.
So well deserved.
I appreciate it. It's always great to see you, man. It's always good to talk to you.
Back at you.
I'm sure I'll be on soon.
Oh, let's do it again. Thanks again. That's Greg Olsen at Greg Olsen 88 from Fox Sports, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. How dare you? What are you, a child?
A little bit.
What's the matter with him? What is the matter with him?
Yeah, I don't know.